and I'm going to be getting started here shortly. I want to be talking about the statin medications versus a new system, relatively, that is a natural option, and it is called the Feel Great system. So I'm going to go ahead and dive right into this. And here's what I want you to know. First is statin medications. We're comparing the statins with a root cause metabolic approach. So rather than trying to do some weird intervention with interrupting enzymes and that sort of thing, we're looking at getting to the very root of this through a natural option that leverages your body's own metabolism. We're going to look at the history, the benefits, the limitations of statin therapy. Then we're going to explore how insulin resistance, lifestyle changes, and the Feel Great system, together with these things, offer an alternative path to heart health. So let me go to the next one. If I can figure out how to, now here we go. So why this conversation matters. And that is mainly because right now, heart disease remains the leading cause of death in the United States, claiming hundreds of thousands of lives each year. Millions of Americans are currently taking statins or being told they need to start taking them to reduce their cardiovascular risk. Yet, the surprising reality challenges the cholesterol-centric model. We've known for a long time that probably cholesterol isn't all of the story, that changing how much cholesterol you eat doesn't seem to have a large bearing on your cholesterol levels either. That was one of the big pushes where they were pushing for low-fat diets, which ended up being a complete disaster. And so right now, though, despite it all, heart disease remains the number one killer. But only 50% of the people who have heart attacks have abnormal or elevated cholesterol levels. So this is the big issue. How do you explain that cholesterol is the problem when only half the people who have heart attacks have a cholesterol issue? There's no way around this. So, important disclaimer, the information presented tonight represents my personal opinions and clinical observations as a physician specializing in metabolic health as of the last several years. And this presentation is educational in nature. It is not individual medical advice. So do not stop or start or change any medication without talking to your own doctor first. Every person's health situation is unique, and medication decisions should be made in partnership with your healthcare provider who knows your complete medical history. So stay to the end, because I'm going to give you something for free if you stay there. I'm going to give you something called the Lab Cheat Sheet. This contains a number of very important, three important labs that your doctor probably doesn't normally check on you, but you need to have checked on a regular basis to know if you are truly metabolically healthy. And when you start, making lifestyle changes or taking a medicine, you need to know if these three labs are changing too, because they are the real reflection of whether or not you're getting sicker or getting healthier. So how did statins become such a blockbuster? The statin story is one of pharmaceutical success and paradigm shift in cardiovascular medicine. And understanding this history helps us to appreciate both the promise and the limitations of cholesterol-lowering medicine. So they were discovered in the 1970s. Japanese researchers discovered natural compounds that inhibited cholesterol synthesis. In the late 1980s, the first statins got their FDA approval for clinical use in treating high cholesterol. Then in the 1990s to 2000s, there were major trials that were conducted, large clinical trials that demonstrated cardiovascular benefits, pushing statins to center stage. And then today, they are widely used. Probably over 50 million Americans are taking statins in the United States. So how do they work? what do they do? Statins block an enzyme. It's called an HMG-CoA reductase, a liver enzyme that's responsible for cholesterol production. They block this enzyme so that you make less cholesterol. And the issue there, though, is that they also block the formation of not just the LDL, the so-called bad cholesterol, but they also block the formation of HDL, the good cholesterol as well. It blocks everything. So today, tens of millions of American adults are taking statins daily. The reach of these drugs has expanded far beyond treating people with established heart disease. Many patients now take statins for primary prevention before they've experienced any heart symptoms or cardiovascular events. This shift raises an important question we must carefully consider. The central question is, are we treating numbers on a lab report, or are we addressing the true root cause of cardiovascular disease? Numbers can improve while underlying metabolic dysfunction continues unchecked. Now, the Jupiter trial, this was a pivotal moment in the history of these statins. And basically, what they did was, with a much larger population of people, so it was a big study, and big studies tend to have better numbers, but they were picking people with normal LDL cholesterol, but they had an elevated CRP, which is a marker for inflammation. Okay, so it seems like they were on the right track here. And they thought, well, if somebody's got, and they kind of proved their own point, and the point that we are now making, which is, it seems that if you have inflammation in your body, that your cholesterol, regardless of the level, whether it's so-called high or normal or low, if you have inflammation going on in your body, then that cholesterol becomes more toxic, more capable of creating clots and plaques and everything else. And so the participants in the Jupiter trial were given Crestor, or rosuvastatin. By the way, this was funded by the maker of rosuvastatin. You need to know that. It's significant. And the results was a large relative reduction in cardiovascular events reported. So I think the number is 20% risk reduction, but that's relative reduction. And you need to understand the difference between relative risk and absolute risk, because that, if they're saying that relative risk lowering looks better, it's a bigger number. Okay, absolute risk is a smaller number, and you need to know what those mean. So here's the thing: when they did this study, they stopped it early. They said, you know what, these numbers are so great, it's obvious this is needed, we're just going to stop the study. We're not spending another dime on this study. It's obvious we need to do this. But the thing is, that's kind of like if we were at the French Open, or Wimbledon, Yvonne Lindell versus McEnroe in the French Open. They play the first set. McEnroe smashes Yvonne Lindell 6-0 in the first set, and they call it. They obviously, John McEnroe is going to win this tournament, so we're just going to end it early. You guys take a break, go on home, and have a good night. But wait a minute. This is the best 4 out of 7 sets. And what turned out to happen that year, I think it was 1984, was Yvonne Lindell was down 3-0 and rallied back 4 straight sets and beat John McEnroe. And that could be what also happens in a study, that maybe you just had a cluster bias in the beginning, a few patients that all had similar scenario, and then you carried it out further, and you see, well, when the more people that we put on this and the longer we conduct the study, well, the benefit doesn't seem to be quite so large, and maybe no benefit at all if they had done it longer and with more people. So there was a lot of controversy about this study, and that, it was being paid for by the people that made the drug. They called it early when it still was looking in their favor, and we would have liked to have seen more. But because of that study, they started lowering the threshold for putting you on a statin. So the early guidelines, statins were primarily for those with very high cholesterol levels or established heart disease. Then the risk calculators were introduced. 10-year cardiovascular risk scores begin driving treatment decisions for broader populations. Then they lowered the thresholds, updated guidelines, recommended statins for progressively lower levels of LDL. Okay. Currently, statins have become almost a default recommendation for anybody over the age of 40. You turn 40, congratulations. You get to start taking a statin now. Do you think that's right? I'm sure that's right for the makers of Crestor, but I don't know that that's right for every single person. Okay. I'm not saying that you should never use a statin. I am saying that, boy, that sure is, they almost make it seem like a vitamin, So what was once targeted therapy for high-risk individuals became a mass market for preventive modification. I think it was Robert Lustig I saw. He said 40 trials, independent trials and meta-analysis they looked at, and basically they couldn't determine that the benefit of these preventive use of statins lowered your risk by much more than 1% risk reduction. 1%. So again, the statistic that changes everything is that 50% of the people who have a heart attack do not have high cholesterol levels. And cholesterol remains a cardiovascular risk factor. I'm not saying cholesterol level is not important, but I'm saying it's not all that we need to consider. And if someone has a high LDL, you need to put that in context, is what it's looking like now. So here's one piece of the complex puzzle. High LDL can increase cardiovascular risk, particularly in a metabolically unhealthy body, a body where the inflammation is high. In a healthy metabolic state, low inflammation, good insulin sensitivity, healthy blood vessel function, then LDL particles may be larger and less prone to oxidation. So they can't become radioactive to you. Not literally radioactive, but once they become oxidized, they're much more prone to damaging vessels, starting plaques, and causing a heart attack. But if you're metabolically healthy, you have low inflammation, you're insulin sensitive, then even though you may have a lot of LDL particles, they're not really getting to be toxic to you. The overall cardiovascular risk remains lower. But in an inflamed body, an insulin-resistant body, somebody that's eating a lot of sugar and refined carbs and ultra-processed foods, those LDL particles become smaller. Think bullets as opposed to beach balls. Okay, beach balls bounce off, bullets penetrate. And if you have a bunch of bullets and they're penetrating a lot, well, then you're going to get in trouble with your arteries. And inflamed vessel walls readily accumulate cholesterol, and the risk of plaque formation increases dramatically. So that high LDL number, you've got to put it in the context of the overall health of the person. Are they taking care of themselves? Do they have high inflammation markers, high SED rate or CRP? Those are the markers for inflammation and others. Now, oops. Okay, next. Well, it's going to stop right there. My whole presentation. Well, that is just not even fair. Okay, so let me go back to this. I don't know why this is just quitting on me in the middle of the presentation. Maybe it was just too long. All right, well, let me go to my notes then. We'll just get right out of that here. Bam. So we were to the point where we were talking about LDL. High LDL numbers need to be put into context. Think of it like this. If you're driving 70 miles per hour on a clear, dry highway, well, there's risks, but they're usually pretty manageable. If you're driving 70 miles an hour on black ice at night in the fog, that is a much higher risk scenario, okay? So similarly, if you have an LDL of 130, but you're someone who's working out 5 days a week, you're eating a carbohydrate controlled diet, and all the carbohydrates that you do eat are complex carbs, whole grains, quinoa, black rice, and sweet potatoes, and you rarely eat sugar, That's a different situation. That's not the same as the guy that's eating Dunkin' Donuts every other night and those delicious Crystal cheeseburgers and milkshakes. That's obviously a little bit riskier situation with a high LDL. The metabolic health crisis. Only about 1 in 8 American adults are truly metabolically healthy. This is now according to multiple studies. It's looking like about 88% of all of us have some degree of insulin resistance. That's man, woman, and child. And so insulin resistance tends to cause a number of other problems. One of those things is fatty liver. In fact, this is maybe a case of the chicken or the egg, because the more fructose in particular that you eat, when you look at sugar, it's made of 2 things. Sucrose is made of glucose plus fructose. Those 2 things are bound together when you eat sugar. Sugar is called sucrose, the scientific name. Well, the glucose can be used in any cell in your body, but the fructose all goes to your liver. And if you're bombarding your liver with a bunch of fructose every day, well, it's being stored there as fat. Eventually, you develop a fatty liver. Now, there's 4 stages of fatty liver. And by the way, dietary causes of fatty liver are the most common now, as opposed to alcohol, which it used to be in the old days. And the only difference between getting it from sugar and getting it from alcohol is the alcohol has been metabolized 1 step ahead by the time you drink it. You still have to go through that step if you eat sugar. Really not that much difference, basically. But the pathway is essentially the same. But there was a study that they conducted to see what percentage of U.S. adults in the United States that had non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. We thought it was going to be somewhere like the rest of the world, about 25%. Not so. We were about 45%. We were nearly double the rest of the world. Now, that's just the number of people who have fatty liver. Never mind the number of people who have insulin resistance. But another study showed that when your liver gets fat, when you get a fatty liver, that seems to be the triggering event to cause the insulin resistance to become ultimately a type 2 diabetic. So you've got overweight people, but not all of them have a fatty liver. Some, maybe genetically predisposed to being overweight. And when you look at their livers on a scan, the ones that are overweight, but they have a fatty liver, they're the ones that are diabetic, or they're for sure insulin resistant. The ones that didn't have a fatty liver, not so much in terms of insulin resistance or fatty liver. It's a huge difference. It's a toggle point, because once you become insulin resistant, then all of the other risk factors for heart disease come into play. The number one, and this is what I'm going to posit in this live right here, is that the number one risk factor for having a heart attack is becoming insulin resistant. Repeatedly bombarding your body with sugar, refined carbs, and ultra processed foods that leads to the insulin resistance is your number one factor. Now, relatively speaking, smoking, but fewer people are smoking these days. But if you're a smoker, well, the risk per capita is probably higher with smoking for getting a heart attack. But if you're insulin resistant and smoking, you're taking the heart attack express. Okay. So high on the list, obviously, is having abnormal lipids, especially ApoB and LDL. The thing is when you do the stuff that you need to do to fix insulin resistance, you tend to fix the LDL and the ApoB too. So, and you also, another big risk factor for having a heart attack is having high blood pressure. But again, when you fix the insulin resistance, that also tends to help lower your blood pressure as well. It helps to get to the root cause of blood pressure. Blood pressure is high blood pressure is caused by insulin resistance like 6 different ways. Like, for example, one of the ways is that high insulin levels cause you to put out more aldosterone. Aldosterone makes your kidneys hang on to more fluid, more water. So it expands your blood volume, which by itself, if you got more fluid in the tank, you're going to have a higher pressure in the arteries. But then it also causes you, in high insulin levels cuts off your ability to make nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is getting more popular. There are supplements out there that allegedly help you to make nitric oxide, because nitric oxide is the magic ingredient that allows your arteries to dilate, lowering your blood pressure. And it's hard to make nitric oxide when you have high insulin levels in your bloodstream. If you're insulin resistant, your insulin levels go up to compensate for the resistance. So kidney disease. Well, one of the biggest risk factors for kidney disease is high blood pressure. If you fix the insulin resistance, which fixes the high blood pressure, which fixes and lowers your risk for kidney disease, not to mention type 2 diabetes is also a big risk factor for kidney disease. So, as you know, you're winning at multiple levels when you fix the insulin resistance problem. You're eliminating all the risk factors. And the only thing it doesn't eliminate is the smoking risk, which you're going to have to do that one on your own. There's only so much that you can do with supplements. So now here's what I want to get down to explaining the risk reduction with statins. They mentioned that statins reduce heart attack risk by 20 to 30%. But again, that's relative risk. So when you hear relative risk, you got to ask yourself, relative to what? Okay. And in this case, think of it like this. Right now, if you look at every 100,000 people in the US, 6 of them will have a heart attack in the next year. But if you're taking a statin, only 5 out of 100,000 will have a heart attack in the next year. So you reduced your risk by 1 in 100,000. I mean, it doesn't seem so dramatic at that point. So that's technically it's a 20% relative risk reduction, 5 versus 6. But when you're looking at absolute risk reduction, then it's only about 1% absolute risk reduction. That doesn't sound very significant at all. It is, to be fair, it is significant, but not that significant. But compare it to natural options. Simply adding a walk, a 15-minute walk after every meal that you eat. So that within 15 minutes of getting done with your dinner, you go for a 15-minute walk. You do that twice a day or 3 times a day, every time a day you eat. And then let's say you eliminate the lion's share of sugar, table sugar from your diet. Maybe you have some on Saturday, so Saturday's Saturday, you have a dessert with your meal on Saturday, but the rest of the days you skip the sugar, and whatever carbohydrates you eat are complex carbs, no French fries. You're eating, whole grain rice, black rice, quinoa, sweet potatoes, things that carry more fiber in them. And you're eating meat and healthy fats, and you're getting in a modest amount of exercise, 30 minutes of moderate intensity exercise. Moderate intensity, you can still breathe. You can still have a full conversation under moderate intensity exercise. If you simply did those things right there, that reduces your absolute risk 5 to 15%, somewhere between 5 times to 15 times the risk reduction of taking a statin. 5 to 15 times more risk reduction. That's even if you don't take the statin in that scenario. So am I saying that no one should ever take a statin and everybody just needs to walk and clean up their diet? No, because there are a certain portion of the population, about 5% of everybody, 1 in 20 people, has something called familial hypercholesterolemia. And if you have that, you probably need to be on a cholesterol lowering medication no matter what. But they're not the majority. They're not the preponderance. They're the minority. So, and If you wanted to avoid the statins, though, you could get potentially a higher benefit from simply avoiding the refined carbohydrates, the sugar, getting in moderate intensity exercise 5 days a week, and then adding, and obviously not smoking if you can help it. And then you throw in a simple lipid lowering natural supplement, like the one I'm going to show you in just a minute, and you got 5 times the risk reduction with that than you would be by doing nothing other than taking a statin. And the problem is when people go on a statin, they tend to let everything else, they feel like they're protected. You know, it's a false sense of security. So they just keep eating like crap and not, you know, they don't exercise or anything. And they say, yeah, you know, I'm good. I'm covered with this statin. I'm on double statin therapy. You know, I'm good. Taking double doses. Now, large analyses show that statins slightly increase the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. And I already told you insulin resistance is the #1 cause for having a heart attack. It's the #1 risk factor for having a heart attack. So the statin reduces your risk a bit by lowering the cholesterol levels, but it can potentially make you more insulin resistant or even cause type 2 diabetes. I'm learning about a host of other potential side effects of the statins, but you just want to suffice to say, you're making a trade-off with the statin drug there. It's not a perfect drug. No drug is. It matters because insulin resistance and diabetes are the major cardiovascular risk drivers. If insulin resistance is the #1 underlying driver of heart disease, we don't want to worsen that. Okay. You want to eliminate that actually. And a treatment that slightly lowers events but increases insulin resistance is a mixed bargain. What happens when you add high quality fiber though? Well, a clinical trial tested soluble fiber and a multivitamin blend in adults with elevated LDL. The participants followed a cholesterol lowering diet and then did 8 weeks of fiber blend plus a placebo or versus a placebo. The researchers measured LDL, ApoB, which is the really actual dangerous particle, more so than LDL, most agree now, homocysteine, which can in part help reflect your insulin resistance level, and triglycerides and HDL. And basically, they found that there was a significant lowering of the cholesterol levels, about 10% of LDL reduction. It improved their triglyceride levels, and you're getting all of these benefits without raising your insulin resistance. No increase in the hemoglobin A1C, which is a marker for diabetes and insulin resistance. No HOMA-IR elevation, another insulin resistance measure, or a fasting insulin level. That's another important way to measure insulin resistance. So you got the benefit of the lipid lowering without the worsening of the insulin resistance with these basic moves, adding this particular fiber supplement and adding in a heart healthy diet. And you throw in on top of that a little basic exercise, 30 minutes of moderate intensity a day, 5 days a week. And you're going to live as long as you want for the majority. So what is this thing I'm talking about? I wish I had all these slides. I don't know why. I delegated this to an AI app to make my slides, and it made roughly a quarter of them. That's what I get for adopting AI early. But I'll show you this right now. I happen to have this in my hands. This system that I have now been on for 3 years. And I had a cholesterol panel that I wasn't too happy with. And as soon as I went on this, this is the first part of it. It's called Balance. It's made by a company called Unicity. And this is beginning to catch on everywhere now. I've been talking about this on social media. This is my 3rd year doing it. There are a lot more doctors getting involved now, a lot more metabolic influencers that are high-level metabolic influencers. So there's a couple that are associates with me in this that I will not name for various reasons, but they are there. And so what's in this packet, this is a patented product. In here is approximately at least seven, but up to 14 different plant sources of soluble fiber. Now that's the key, is the plant diversity. Most of what we get in our diet is like one or two different plant sources of fiber. Usually it's inulin is the one that we eat the most. I took Metamucil and Benefiber, a whole mess of it for years. It didn't do anything for my cholesterol. But when I took this, within 3 months, I had a perfect cholesterol profile. But what happens with this product is you mix it in about a cup of water, shake it up, drink it right before your meal. It's going to turn into a gel after about 15 minutes. So you definitely don't want to, be waiting to drink it. You want to drink it immediately after you mix it up. And it's just going to take up space in your stomach. It's going to coat the food that you eat after it, slowing down how fast those carbs that you eat hit your bloodstream, keeping your insulin levels low. It'll make you feel fuller, so you won't eat as much. It'll help even filter out some of the cholesterol that you do eat, drag it on through your gut so you never even absorb it. But it's all the benefits that it has also on your microbiome, your intestines, and that gut-brain connection there. A lot of your neurotransmitters are made in your gut by bacteria, serotonin in particular. I think 80% of your serotonin is made by the bacteria in your gut. So you put this stuff in there and you start tuning up the connections to your brain. You start reducing the inflammation in your body. You start seeing your cholesterol levels normalize, and then you start noticing that you're just not that hungry. The second part of this system is called Unimate. Unimate is a tea. Now, they've expanded this out. They got several new flavors. One thing to keep in mind, when companies are doing real well, they start expanding flavors. I'm telling you, this is catching on. So we've got several new flavors. The one I just bought was this is lemon ginger, which is probably the most popular flavor for now. And then there's a straight lemon. And then there is a pomegranate raspberry version. I've had that. And there's some others that I don't even know about that are coming out. But basically you mix this in about 2 cups of water, a little more than 2 cups, shake it up, and you're just sipping on this. And what it will do is it will raise your body's manufacture of GLP-1. Now, you've heard of Ozempic and Wegovy, Mounjaro. For some reason, my watch is just exploding with messages. It's distracting to me, so I'm going to get that off. But you got all these new drugs, these GLP-1 imitations, and the problem, they do essentially the same thing, but you've got to understand how different they are than your body's GLP-1. They got the idea for these drugs from a lizard peptide. There was this lizard that only eats a couple of times a year. And they try to figure out what is it that allows this lizard to just sit there not hungry for that long. And they boiled it down to a singular peptide. So they imitated the peptide, a lizard peptide. Now, humans were not meant to eat 2 or 3 times a year. They were meant to eat every day, or at least every other day. But we imitated it, and then we refined it a little bit more. And that's what folks are injecting into their body. And it has an action. So your own body's GLP-1 shuts down a hunger peptide called ghrelin. When it's the morning hours, you get up and you feel that little rumble in your tummy, you're hungry. That's ghrelin talking to you, telling you you're hungry. GLP-1 shuts down ghrelin, just suppresses the manufacture of it. And it usually does it for about 4 minutes at a time. Your GLP-1's length of action is about 4 minutes versus Ozempic, which is about 10,000 plus minutes. It has 2,500 times the extended action on your ghrelin suppression. Now, here's the thing about that. You might say that's awesome. It's pretty much totally shutting off one of your major hunger peptides. Not so, because you got to think of the long-term consequences of this. There's this unfortunate thing called homeostasis in your body. When you shove something this way, there is a pushback, a compensation that happens. So when people come off this drug, well, that hunger comes back with a vengeance. Weight is regained. And it's often harder to lose the second time around because we're also noticing that they're losing a lot of muscle on these medicines. And muscle is what makes you metabolically flexible. I'm seeing people that are losing their teeth because of the bone loss. Okay. If you had any compromise in your dental health at all, you go on a GLP-1 and then you don't eat anything all day long except for a bowl of Fruit Loops at the end of the day, you can pretty much kiss your teeth goodbye. They're not going to withstand that bone loss plus a continued barrage of sugar, even if it is only once a day. But this product here just makes you make a little bit more of your own body's natural GLP-1, 4-minute half-life, perfect. No muscle loss, no bone loss, no losing teeth, no paralyzing your intestines, no pancreatitis, no thyroid cancer, no blindness, no foot drop. Yeah, foot drop, one of the potential risks of those medicines. Bilateral foot drop. I met a woman recently who was taking Mounjaro, and both of her feet would slap when she walked because the nerves in her legs had been compromised by that drug. So, and I hear people say, oh, that's what happens with, rapid weight loss. Maybe that's why you don't want rapid weight loss. You need to do it naturally, and then you avoid blindness and foot drop and all that stuff. It's slower for a reason. Sometimes you just can't rush certain things, All right. Now, so between these two, it's like a synergistic effect at putting your metabolism in a 180 back to the way it was meant to be. You find that you just are not as hungry as you used to be, where food was on your mind all the time, pretty much every hour and a half. Suddenly it's only on your mind when it's supposed to be on your mind, at lunch and dinner, and sometimes at breakfast, depending on whether you did leg day the day before or not. If you do leg day, you're going to be hungry in the morning, no matter what. But, and it just gives you back that control. And let me tell you, psychologically, having a sense of control over your appetite is gold. That's when you have that sense of control, you can maintain habits and behaviors for the long run. I've been referring people to this system. Now, this is soon to be on my 4th year of this. I wish my father had had something like this available to him. He died from the full spectrum of metabolic disease. It was a death by food. He had type 2 diabetes, he had kidney disease, high blood pressure, a cardiomyopathy, neuropathy in his legs, peripheral vascular disease. All of that was caused by food. Had he had something like this, and it would have given him that control where he could have, sort of helped clean up his own diet and make better choices at the dinner table and reversed a lot of this, had a much more pleasant existence for the last 10 to 20 years of his life. Instead, they were 11 very hard, miserable years, and then he died. You don't want to go out like that. And it is a choice for most of us, how we go out. Why not do it the good way? It feels a lot better, believe me. And a lot of it depends on who you're hanging out with. Some people don't prioritize this kind of thing. And if you're hanging out with people like that, you're not going to either. But when you start hanging out with people who prioritize their health, they're conscientious about it, you start to feel better. And you start, after a while, start to wonder, man, why wasn't I doing this all along? This is way better. It's a way better way to do life. So to entice you to try this, you couldn't have a better circumstance. Let me explain. With this system, if you do the subscription with this, and I'll tell you how to get it, you can go into the link in my bio. I'll probably, when this does the replay comes up, I'm going to put a link below it. Or let me see if I can actually put a thing here. Let me see. I might be able to type it here. Media. Let's see. Add a source. Video screen share, extra image, local. No, never mind. Just go to the link in my bio here on Facebook, and there's a Linktree link, and you'll see one to the Feel Great system. That's what it's called. And you go in there, you can create an account, subscribe. It's cheaper if you subscribe. You're going to get the 32% permanent discount through my link. And then you will get a 90-day money back guarantee. You can trial this for 90 days, get your money back. That's it. And then in addition, when I see your name come up on my list, I'm going to give you 3 free things that you are definitely going to want. Number 1 is the lab cheat sheet. And for those of you who stayed till the end here, by the way, just send me a direct message here on Facebook. I will send you a copy of that lab cheat sheet. I'll email it to you. I just need your email address. But that lab cheat sheet is the stuff that your doctor doesn't order on you. Most of them don't even know what it's for, but that you really need to be checking in order to know if you're getting metabolically healthier. You're going to get the metabolic reset protocol, which is an eating protocol, not a diet, but a framework that you can use in order to, no matter what kind of food that you like to eat, this is something that you would be able to use and stay metabolically healthy. The third thing you're going to get is the apps and wearable technology guide. In particular, there are wearable technology that measure various metrics. There's one in particular that's more important than the others. HRV, mark my words, heart rate variability. It's probably the most important metric you can track to know whether you're healthier. And but in that is a list of what I think are the best of the wearable technologies and apps that actually move the needle on your health. You get all those 3 guides free. You'll get the 90-day money back guarantee. You will get the permanent 32% discount, and you will get 3 coaching calls, 20 minutes from me. I will help tailor this experience to your particular needs, troubleshoot anything that you've got coming at you, and make sure that you get the success that you're looking for. If you don't like it, you tried it for almost 3 months, just let us know and you can get your money back and keep the guides. Nothing to lose and everything to potentially gain. It is a mistake not to listen to what I'm telling you right now. Okay. If you truly want good health, then you would be making a mistake not to at least try this. Okay. I wouldn't get behind something that I haven't myself had not had a profound experience with, but now at this point I've referred hundreds of people to the system, and every single one without exception that took the system as prescribed and then made those basic moves that are much easier to do once you're on the system, they all got what they want out of it. They saw their cholesterol levels improve. They saw the weight come off. They saw their blood pressure come down. If they were, some of them were diabetics, they stopped being diabetic. Didn't control their diabetes. It stopped it. They were no longer diabetics after a period of time. Okay. There was one gentleman I met, he was from Mississippi. I didn't refer him to the system, but he weighed almost a quarter of a ton when he started on the system. He was like 492 pounds. He was on 24 medicines. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall, the doctor having the conversation with him when he prescribed that 24th medicine. He was like, man, I know there's 23 medicines that you're taking every day, but you're going to need one more if you want to stay alive. I'm sure he was just like, what are you saying? Another pill? Like a whole, put 24 M&Ms in your hand right there. See what that feels like to swallow. So eventually he was on the system. 9 months later, he's lost like 115 pounds. He's down to 3 medicines. So obviously these medicines, they help in the right situation. If you're not going to take care of yourself, okay, they will mitigate your risk a little bit, but they are not going to turn that franchise around unless you become an active participant in it. But this is just something that is natural that makes it a whole lot easier. And if you so choose, you can actually become a distributor with me. This is an AI-proof business. In the next 3 years, let me just tell you, winter is coming for you, for many, through AI. I'm a consultant to a tech company that is making a system right now. It's called Shadow. And this system will basically eliminate 80% of all jobs inside of doctors' offices in the next 3 years. People are already subscribing to this, but all the doctor has to do, go in and see the patient, examine them. And by the end of that encounter, let's just say I saw a person, they needed back surgery. The note will be completed because the system does it for you. If they needed to see a cardiologist before they got surgery to make sure their heart's okay, it will have already put the consultation request to the cardiologist and verified the appointment and sent the patient the message and the notification of the appointment time. And it will send you back the cardiologist information, what they came up with when they saw the patient. I mean, it does everything. The only thing it can't do yet is take your blood pressure. You probably need a nurse to do that part. But short of that, it can pretty much run your whole practice. There's a lot of businesses that are like that. That's just medicine. So this is a business that is AI proof because it is based on human relationships. Okay. And you create that network with people and you can weather the storm. And it's something that keeps going on and on and on. So, and because there's a huge market for this particular product that works, well, we're doing rather well. Like I said, you don't expand the flavor choices in a product that's dying. This product is rapidly gaining traction on a global level in over 55 countries right now. All right. I promise those of you that stayed this late, you can have the lab cheat sheet. Just DM me lab cheat sheet, and I will send you and your email address, and I will send you a copy of the lab cheat sheet. I'll email that back to you. In the meantime, if you want to try out the Feel Great system, click into the link in my bio here on Facebook. Click the link that says it's a Linktree link. Once you click on that, you'll see several tabs. One of them says Feel Great. Click that tab. It'll show you a little bit more information. You can skip through it if you want and order the system and try it for 3 months and get your money back if you don't like it. But it's a sticky product. People like what it does for them. And then I'll be in touch with you. You know, we can, if you want your coaching calls, we'll do those 3 coaching calls. Make sure you get what you want. I truly want you to achieve the health that you want to achieve. I'm not just sitting here pandering to you about something. I get a great sense of satisfaction interrupting the bad trajectory someone's health was in. And, you know, as a neurosurgeon, I was doing it when things were too late. You know, somebody's let that blood pressure stay high too long. They finally blow a gasket in their head and they're calling me to come manage that situation. I didn't like doing that. What I like is this, heading it off before it ever can happen. And you feel so much better. And when you're a distributor in this business and you help people in this way, people are truly grateful to you for that. They realize there's like a veil unlifted off their brain now that it works so much better. And they realize, you know, where they were and where they are now, how much better it is. There's nothing better to see, to do that for someone. Okay, guys, I'm going to go and hope to see you later. I'll probably do this again next Wednesday night, same time.